Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. On this week's episode, I'll be speaking with Tennessee triple murderer Hope Warvi. Joshua Kuhl, Brandon Roberts, Lacey Colson, and Hope Warvi are responsible for the deaths of 3 individuals at a homeless camp in Knoxville, Tennessee. The 3 victims in this case are 28-year-old Colin Colbert, 29-year-old Ryan Gurney, and 32-year-old Grace Stanridge. The victims in this case were beaten and strangled to death. Joshua Kuhl and Brandon Roberts were sentenced to life in prison. Lacey Colson testified against the 3 and pled guilty to lesser charges and has since been released from custody. Hope Warvi is in prison. She was sentenced to 15 years for second-degree murder for the murders of Colin and Ryan, as well as facilitation of murder for Grace's murder, for a total of 30 years. I talked to Hope about her life growing up and the murders that landed her a 30-year prison sentence. Here's my interview with Tennessee triple murderer Hope Warvi.
This is a prepaid call from Hope, an inmate at the Tennessee Department of Corrections, Deborah K. Johnson Rehabilitation Center.
Let's talk about your childhood. Where were you born?
I was born at UT Hospital in Knoxville, Tennessee.
What's your first memory ever that you can recall?
My second birthday, I was playing. I remember I was playing with balloons with my brother, bouncing them around, chewing on a cheese stick. I remember eating cake, playing with my brother that day.
What's your most positive childhood memory that you can recall?
My most positive childhood memory, probably go to Disney World when I was a kid. I went there twice.
And did you get to do that with your family as well?
I got to do that with my church youth group, the 2 different foster homes that I was at. I went to the same church. Both of those foster parents went to the same church, so I went like 2 different times in 2 different foster homes.
That's your most positive childhood memory. What's the most negative childhood memory that you can remember, and what age was that?
Probably when I was being raped and molested from like the age of 7 to 10, and then when I was molested and almost raped at the age of 10 by somebody else, 2 different people.
How did you end up in foster care?
My parents were both drug addicts and alcoholics, and me and my brother were taken from them for suspected neglect and abuse.
And approximately how many foster homes did you live in throughout your childhood and adolescence?
I was in 15 foster homes and 2 group homes.
Were there any homes that were good to you, that treated you with loving kindness?
I would say when I lived with my adopted mom, my foster mom adopted me when I lived with her from the age of 7 till 12 when she adopted me. And then I got put back in foster care after she adopted me.
Were there any foster homes or foster parents that were exceptionally harsh towards you?
I had a foster parent that we were always getting into it. And one time she pushed me, and I fell and hit my head on the edge of the windowsill, and it busted my head open. Before she pushed me, she had actually pushed me into a closet and shut me in the closet, and I had to hit my way out and kick my way out of the closet till I punched a hole in it, and then she opened the closet door and let me out, and then that's when she pushed me, and I fell and hit my head. And then I just had other foster homes that just mental and verbal abuse.
Over time in this environment, did you gain coping skills to help you deal with how you were treated?
Yeah, I learned to read a lot. Sometimes it's listen to music, but I really like to read. It just kind of helped me escape from reality for a little bit.
You talked about abuse. What was the outright abuse? Mental, emotional, sexual, physical? I know you said that you were raped and molested when you were younger. About how many instances did that happen?
The only physical abuse I ever endured was when that lady pushed me and I fell and hit my head. And emotional and mental abuse type of stuff was just saying that I was no good and stuff like that. The sexual abuse, I can't recall exactly how many different times it know it happened from the age of 7 until I was about 10 with one person. And then after that had stopped, because the guy turned 18, there was another teenage boy that molested me and attempted to rape me, but I was able to get away. And that happened when I was 10, but after all the other stuff had stopped.
Did anybody ever step in to do anything? Was the police called, CPS, or anything like that?
I didn't tell anybody about the stuff that happened for all those years until I was about 15 or 16. I think I might have been like 15. No, I was 16 when I told about that finally. And nothing happened with the first time I said something, but then when they were doing an evaluation on me at one point in a group home, they asked if I'd ever been raped or molested or sexually abused or anything like that, and I told them that. Then the police got involved with Adam. As soon as the other guy, when I was 10, when he attempted to rape me and I got away, as soon as that happened, I went in and I told my adopted mom, my foster mom, and then CPS became involved in that particular incident with that guy. But at the time, they didn't know anything about it, so it's like I told about the incidences out of order.
Did you ever go to church as a child?
Yes, I went to church all the time.
Was it something that you enjoyed?
There were times that I enjoyed it, but not all the time.
Was religion ever forced upon you?
Yes, quite often.
What did you do in rebellion against being forced to go to church and do other religious things?
Well, I might have been sneaking out of church to go smoke pot with my friends, and I was making out with Pastor's son in the youth group room, getting in fights at church. Got in about 2 different fights while I was at church. Just stuff like that.
Were you accepted amongst your peers growing up, and did you make friends easily?
When I was older, I felt like I was more accepted, but when I was younger, I felt kind of ostracized and picked on. I just kind of felt like I didn't have that many friends when I was probably around elementary and middle school age, early middle school.
Did they know that you were in foster care, and did it make a difference in how you were treated? Were you ostracized because of it?
Yes, I got picked on by other kids when I was younger, especially in elementary school. They would tell me that I didn't have real parents, and that my mom and dad must not have left me, stuff like that.
At what age did you willingly lose your virginity?
I was 14.
Were you promiscuous as a teenager?
Very much so. I was very, very, very promiscuous.
Did you equate sex with love, use it to get what you wanted and needed, or did it have little meaning and worth at all to you from being over-sexualized as a child? You can answer that separately if you'd like.
Okay. There were times when I equated sex with love, and I learned really quickly that not only was sex not love, but I could use it to get what I wanted, which was whether it was attention, or there was times I even used it when I got older to pay rent. I would be with somebody that they thought we were together, but I was really just using them to get what I needed for myself and my kids at the time.
Do you remember much about your birth mother and your birth father?
I didn't meet my birth mother until I was probably about, I think I was 19 when I met my birth mother for the first time, after we were taken away when I was 13 months old. So I didn't have a very good relationship with her, but I remember my dad a whole lot better. And before he passed away, I would live with him sometimes after I was 18. I remember he really loved his grandkids a whole lot.
So what's your best quality?
My best quality, I feel like I'm very loyal. I am a very loyal friend.
Where do you think your sense of loyalty stems from?
Just because I felt like growing up, I never had anybody, like, show me loyalty, or, like, I never had anybody just have my back growing up. So it's just like, I know that since I never received that, that's the type of person that I want to be.
So let's talk about the crimes you're in prison for. You received 2 consecutive 15-year prison sentences on second-degree murder for the death of Colin Colbert and Ryan Gurney, and facilitation of Grace Stanridge's murder for a total of 30 years. Can you walk me through what led up to the 3 homicides in a homeless camp in Knoxville, Tennessee?
What led up to it is there was an incident, like, probably a week prior to the 3 that we're charged with that happened, and we're not charged with that, but it happened. And there was this guy that we were all drinking, me and my co-defendants, we were all drinking, as well as Ryan, one of the victims, he was there as well. And we were all drinking, and my 2 male co-defendants, Brendan and Josh, left to go get more alcohol, and left me and Ryan and Lacey there with this guy that we called Bucky. Well, Bucky was really, really drunk. We were all really drunk that night, and I was playing around with Bucky, and I went to go, like, just kind of playfully push him, and he was laying, where we were at was underneath this bridge on this, like, concrete, like, it was a flat concrete area, and then there was this concrete embankment that, like, went down a little bit, and then there's, like, a creek. Well, when I went to go push him, he was laying on the edge of that concrete embankment. Well, he started to roll down the concrete embankment. Well, after he rolled about halfway down, he managed to stop himself, and he came back up and started coming at me, and he put his hands around my throat and was choking me. Well, I guess he was a little bit more drunk than I was, because I managed to get him off of me, and then I got on top of him and was, like, straddling him, and I just started hitting him and stuff like that because of where he had choked me. Well, I guess I had been yelling and stuff, and Ryan and Lacey, I think they might have been yelling too, because Brandon and Josh came running back trying to figure out what was going on, and they pulled me off of Bucky, and when they pulled me off of him, they were trying to figure out what had happened, and I told them that what I had done, where I pushed him and how he had, like, choked me and stuff. Well, when they found that out, they got really, really mad. Brendan and Josh did, and I believe it was Josh. He grabbed Bucky by his ankle and pulled him down the concrete embankment to this little, like, pebble beach area that was, like, out of the water as the creek or whatever. So when they got him down there, they just started beating him and putting rocks in his mouth and, like, stomping on his face. I don't know if they were trying to knock his teeth out. Like, they just kept doing this, and then, like, they were taking him and, like, putting his face in the water, trying to, like, drown him. They pull him back up, and then they'd do it again, and they just kept, like, choking him with these rocks in his mouth, and just beating him and trying to drown him. So finally, after I realized, like, they weren't going to stop, I was calling down there to them, and I went down there, and I was trying to tell them, you know, stop, you know, and they wouldn't stop. And I was like, do you want to go to prison for the rest of our lives? Because if you don't stop, that's what's going to happen. And they were like, well, he probably already has brain damage, so we're already going to go to prison for the rest of our lives. And Josh was just telling me to go back up to the top, and he just kept telling me to go back up to the top. And like when I saw the street light hit Bucky's face, it was so bad. Like if I didn't know that that was a human face, like I wouldn't have recognized it as being like human. That's how badly they had beaten him already within just like a couple of minutes. Well, I realized that they were not going to stop, and my just natural reaction is just denial, act like it's not happening, because that was the only way I knew how to deal with it at the time. So I went back up to the top of the embankment, and I covered my head up and like went made myself go to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, he was nowhere to be found. Bucky wasn't, and so I didn't ask what had happened to him because I think I kind of already knew. But that's what happened a week prior to the murders of Ryan and Colin and Grace.
So that leads up to the murders of these 3 individuals. None of you are convicted of the murder of Bucky, correct?
Correct.
Let's talk about the murders of Colin, Ryan, and Grace. How did that all transpire, and how did all that come about after the murder of Bucky?
Well, once again, we were drinking. So before the murders happened, there was Joe. He was hanging out with us that night too, which was Grace's boyfriend. Him and Grace got into it because Grace didn't want to be with Joe anymore. She wanted to be with Brandon. So Joe got mad and set his and Grace's tent on fire and left. Me and Josh had to put out the fire of Grace's and Joe's tent before the police got called. Well, Joe left. He's gone. And so it's just me, Ryan, Lacey, Colin, Grace, Brandon, and Josh. So then Lacey and Ryan get into an argument because they had broken up like the day before or something like that, and either earlier that day or the day before. And Ryan wanted his t-shirt back that Lacey was wearing, and Lacey wouldn't give it back to him, so he got mad and spit in her face. Well, we were sitting on these like pallet things that were like what Coke's drinks come on. When he spit on her, he started backing away from Lacey, because I guess he thought maybe she might do something to him. Well, when he was backing away, he backed into me and started to trip over my foot. Well, I think because he and I did not get along, I think he thought I had like tried to trip him on purpose or something, because he got mad and turned around and kicked me in my leg or whatever for, I guess, supposedly tripping him. Well, when that happened, Brandon and Josh started fighting Ryan and pushing Ryan back and forth in between the two of them. And then Brandon, he bent down and picked up like this 2x4, this big wooden 2x4, and hit Ryan over the head with it. Well, Ryan went down, and that's when Brandon got on top of Ryan and started beating him in the face and strangling him. Brandon called me over to him. I don't know where Josh disappeared to. He disappeared to somewhere while this was going on after Ryan hit the ground. So I don't know where he went. But Brandon called me over to him and said for me to put my hand over Ryan's nose and mouth while he was strangling him to make sure he wasn't breathing at all. So I did, and Ryan, like, he wasn't moving or anything like that. I don't know if he was already dead by the time I had put my hands over his nose and mouth, because like he wasn't moving. But that happened, and then Brandon went somewhere fire, and Colin just suddenly sat up and started talking about how I think he's dead. I think he's dead. Well, Josh pulled me and Brandon to the side, talking about, I think we're gonna have to kill him, and I was just like, no, like, everybody's drunk, nobody's gonna remember this in the morning, I was trying to tell Colin before they called me over there that he was just drunk and passed out, but, he wasn't dead, he was just drunk and he was passed out. He'd get up in a minute, he was just knocked out, Brandon knocked him out, just stuff like that. And when they called me over there, talking about, I think we have to kill him, like, I kept trying to convince them, no, everybody's drunk, they won't remember this in the morning. Well, they wouldn't listen to me, so they said we were going to kill Colin and Grace, and they wanted me to kill Lacey, but I managed to convince them that, hey, she's a part of our group, let's not kill her, so they got Lacey over to the side and was like, we want you to have sex with Colin to get him to, like, pass out so that we can kill him. And she was like, okay, yeah, I want to do that because I want to be like baby off the devil's rejects and fuck him before you all kill him or whatever.
That was my interview with Hope Warvi. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, she has been unable to call back. If you would like to hear more of Hope Warvi's story, you can head over to Criminal Perspective and hear the interview Chris and I did with her while I was a part of Criminal Perspective. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you on the next one.
Unforbidden.